Chapter 5. A group of office workers stood waiting in the elevator lobby. Antonio studied them as he took his place. Did he look like he'd just finished work? Did he look like them? A glance at his recently scrubbed eyeline told him it was almost 8 o'clock. Lots of employees had finished their day, others were arriving to work through the night. An elevator popped open and spilt half its suits into the corridor. Antonio leaned forward, keen to get in, but the others stayed put, and he stuttered to a halt. An instinct gripped him, his heart quickened, and his fists clenched, ready to strike. The moment hung as he kept their bodies in his periphery, alive to the slightest movement. Time restored itself as he realised his mistake. This elevator was going up, whereas they wanted a downbound one to take them to the car stack in the basement. They were just going home, like him. Quietly going home after a normal day at the office. Back to his apartment. Back to his wife. A downbound elevator arrived and they all shuffled into the gaps permitted them. Corralled in the centre, Antonio bowed his head with peculiar humiliation. Shoulder to shoulder with the others, he could sense the tiniest twitch as they shifted and adjusted their balance. He focused on his own immobility, solemnly fixing his gaze on a man's neck in front, hoping nobody noticed his perspiration. The atmospherics maintained optimal comfort. Still, Antonio's glands throbbed and his shirt dampened under his jacket. 3 floors below ground level, the elevator reached the reception atrium. The doors parted, and they poured out in a synchronous stream, coursing their way past reception in a well-practised sweep. There was the occasional nod and wave goodnight to the reception drones garrisoned behind their long desk, but Antonio kept his eyes on the flock of heels striking the marble floor ahead. They fed into other streams of homebound employees and, as one mass, headed to the car stack. Antonio had cruised through the security checkpoint 1,000 times, but tonight he felt unusual and distinct. Over bobbing heads, he saw the security guards ahead. The gates beside them, with their hard black lines framing everyone passing through. This is it, he thought. This is where they'll pick me up. They're waiting for me. They know about the offshore negatives. Why else would I have got the alert? Antonio pictured a net of security guards gathering him in, and anticipated the heavy hand about to fall on his shoulder. He was finished. He knew it. His only consolation was that they'd caught him too late. Antonio had smuggled the offshore negatives to his consociate a few days ago, and since then they'd been winding the operation down, extracting themselves and tying up loose ends. It was a terrific victory for the cause. If the stolen coding lived up to its reputation, then this was a pivotal moment in their struggle. Nothing short of a total paradigm shift. Yet, swaying with the crowd towards the security gates, Antonio was disappointed with himself. He should have been prouder of their achievement, gloriously defiant in his capture, the picture of a martyred hero. But the truth was, it scared him. As potent as the offshore negatives were, victory was of meagre comfort when he thought of what corporate security would do to him. He knew it in his body. Antonio's knees dwindled under him, and he understood with absolute clarity that he didn't want this. It had all been a mistake. This shouldn't be happening. Time to call it off. Press pause. Rewind. Eject. The bustle of homebound commuters organised themselves as they hurried through the gates, one at a time. There were just 3 people before him. Now 2. Now 1. Antonio stepped forward, sick and faint with fear. His eyes roamed over the solid shapes of the guards. Were there more than usual? They seemed edgy, on the alert, ready. It was time to prep the contingency plan he'd drilled 1,000 times. The recusancy had embedded an implant inside Antonio's tongue, not the thin tip, but the fat, rolling squelch of the middle. When he bit his tongue, the pressure would crush the implant, and less than a second later, specific paths of neurons spidering through his brain would freeze in an instant. As these microscopic pathways died, so would his memories, all the way back to when Antonio's conscience had brought him to the recusancy. Just one hard champ on his tongue, and he disclosed nothing of value under any circumstance. He walked past the first pair of guards and set his tongue between his wisdom teeth, preparing to bite down. He wafted through the clicks and beeps of the security gate, dizzy and light, a kite in the breeze, about to be reeled in and pulled down. His eyeline pinged as the gate scanned it, and he kept on walking, head shaking imperceptibly, denying the inevitable. The ghost of Antonio Dromia drifted past more guards, pale, mind-detached, uncoupled from the horror around him. Somewhere, legs carried him on. Through the checkpoint, around the corner, en route to the car stack. A shiver in his chest released him, and Antonio breathed once again. Euphoria rose, but he kept it in check, tempered it. He wasn't safe yet. Still, something bobbed within him. Antonio was past security, and he was free. Just another employee on his way home, another anonymous suit going back to his predictable wife, their average home, their cosy future, and the preparations they were making for the baby. Anybody watching Antonio might have noticed his eyes light up a little. They might have seen his mouth tweak into a private smile. There was a rhythm in the queues for the car stack. A door shunted open, an employee walked up a gangway and through the door. The door closed, the queue edged forwards. Antonio's queue shunted forwards a pace, and his gaze fell on the adverts projecting from the wall. A new television show promised to be funny and thrilling and sexy. A deodorant promised to be effective and thrilling and sexy. A brand of sneakers promised to be fashionable and thrilling and sexy. He wondered if his next cover would watch that show or use that deodorant or buy those sneakers. He wondered what sort of cover they'd concoct for him, and whether he'd miss this one. Whether part of him would miss the money, the position, the high-tech apartment. Would he miss his so-called wife? That was the question. After going underground, they'd not see each other again, or perhaps they'd meet, but wouldn't recognise one another after identity alteration. He hoped she'd made it to a safe house. The loss of a consociate you'd worked closely with was a special kind of hell. Then again, he wondered, could she have betrayed him? It seemed unlikely. The idea didn't really add up. It was more probable she'd just fucked up, been thoughtless, too relaxed after the success of their mission. His consociate was young, inexperienced, idealistic. Maybe she'd fucked up. He hoped she wasn't suffering. She'd gone the extra yard for this mission, the baby, and everything. There was real potential there. The queue progressed, and the bleeps at the front grew louder. Antonio scanned his eyeline, stepped up the gangway, sat in his car, and sped away from the officers he'd known for the last year. "Good evening, Antonio," his car said as he settled himself on the couch. Are we going straight home? No, he said. Take me to St. Johnston's Medical Centre, quickly. Are you unwell? Perhaps there's something in my medicine cabinet that might help. Some water will be fine. A small section opened on the table next to his couch, and a frosted glass of mineral water rose and waited for him. If it's necessary, I can engage emergency transit. We'll get there sooner. No, this is fine. The car glided up to street level, and the windows tinted dark. In the blink of an eye, they merged into the highway traffic at phenomenal speed. His car edged into the space opening for them half an arm's length from the surrounding vehicles. In the subdued evening light, the city flickered past and a womb-like warmth flushed over him. So familiar, this tender sensation of being cradled by his car as it swam with the rest of the traffic. So graceful. Every intention transmitted in an instant. A tremendous school of fish coursing through the streets, twisting and flicking this way and that, acting as one. And he was in the belly, removed without responsibility, like a fish egg, he supposed, like caviar. We'll arrive at the medical centre in just under 2 minutes. Great. Is there anything else you need? Are you hungry? Some music? Antonio sat back and covered his face with his hands. He didn't know if he should laugh or cry. The tension he'd held inside quivered and sprang open, released at last. His shoulders jerked as if he might sob, but instead a manic laugh escaped. He felt a little mad. It was over. He was free. No, thank you, he said, grinning in disbelief. I'm all right. I'm fine. They cruised on, arriving at the exit for the medical centre. His car negotiated its inch-perfect route through the automated traffic and off the highway. The mass car decelerated, and Antonio prepared to get out, repeating the protocol to himself once again. The car drew to a halt, but the door stayed shut. A sudden hiss burst through the wall near his head, and he recoiled. His tongue was back between his teeth. But before he could bite down, Antonio blacked out.